Hello viewers, welcome to Talking Business yet again. I'm your host Vikant Sahai. Today we are going to talk about something which is very close to heart in Goa, especially if you talk about architecture. And yes, we are going to talk to the chairman of the Indian Institute of Architects of Goa chapter, and that is Mr. Manguesh Prabhugaonkar. Welcome, Mr. Manguesh Prabhugaonkar. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Tell me something about IIA.
Yeah. Basically, IIA is the full form is the Indian Institute of Architects Goa chapter. It's a branch of national organization which looks after all the integrities of our profession, architecture. Architecture as a profession, as you are known, is guided by our 1972 The Architects Act, which was passed in the Parliament. And since then, since last 100 years, we are practicing architecture in various parts of the country. So architecture, basically the masses, if I look at, they think it's only art and drawing and painting and fantasizing on sketches. In fact, in the reality, is not exactly that particular thing. People have to basically change their perception about architecture. Architecture is basically a combination of art, humanities, where the human component comes into, and second is architecture related issues, and then third is the kind of engineering which is required to make our architecture happen. But in today's time, in contemporary time, the new component is also which is coming with sustainability. So network of all this art, humanities, architecture, engineering and sustainability puts ourselves into a challenging perspective where our role as architects is completely placed on a different level globally also, considering the kind of global issues which are happening both at national level also and international level also. You see, maybe 50 years back during the pre-liberation time, when the Portuguese were there for nearly more than 500 years, approach towards architecture was completely different. There were parameters, there were guidelines to a different level. Like you can say use of sustainable materials, use of localized materials, and respecting Goa's cultures, socio-cultural component, respecting the kind of way of life people had, which was linked to all the festivals of the year, whether it started with the Christmas during New Year time, whether it started with the Holi in the March, Easter for Easter, or the summer vacation which happened, the pre-monsoon, whatever got involved as a lifestyle within different cultures during Ganesh time or Diwali time. All these basically components or lifestyles contributed to the kind of architecture we had. So like even if you have a house, foreground has got a character. The rear side backyard has got a character. Farmer will have another kind of character. Fisherman will have another kind of character. So this dictated the kind of architectural building typologies, that people wanted to live in. They didn't want to have, these boxes which are created in stereotype X by Y and 100 of them come in a row. I mean, that's the kind of thing which used to happen maybe earlier. I mean, the traditional part which used to happen earlier. But in today's date, these are the kind of concerns, and that humanism which is happening, which is the need of the hour for architecture, somehow is disappearing. So through our institute, we are trying our best, to get those kind of issues revived through architecture, so that people also get to know, what kind of habitat they should deserve.
So what happens when if I go around in Goa, if I see a architecture of say simple house, so would I be able to know the profession of that person living in that? Is it possible?
In fact, in today's date, it's very, very difficult. You brought a very good point about having traditional occupations linked to your house. Yeah. The character of the house reflected what you were into, or what kind of professional lifestyle you had. You could make out that in the hinterland, the farmer or the agriculturist had one kind of reflection of ideas through architecture. Along the coastal belt, you had another kind of character. But in post-65 and 70s, when the tourism started coming in, Goa started getting known for its global brand as a tourism destination. That's how this tourism component started taking over gradually, and that's how entire this so-called holiday homes, and resorts, that kind of component came in with huge economic value for Goa, and issues of what architecture reflects got a backseat, and socio-economic component which is there, the financial component which gives revenue to the state, that started dictating the kind of architecture which is emerging right now actually.
So what do we say about the urban planning here in Goa? How is it going, and what would be IIA's perspective towards that?
Yeah, so IIA, that is the Indian Institute of Architects, has got some kind of initiative called Agenda Connect. Through this Agenda Connect, we are trying to link different sectors or different stakeholders which are linked to architecture. First is immediately to my stakeholder, which is a house or a bungalow or a hotel or a hospital kind of thing. Number two, we need to relate it to allied professionals, like it is related to engineering, it's related to sociologists, it's related to economists, it's related to environmentalists, issues like that. And third, it is connected to the masses. So basically we are trying to, through our institute, trying to establish a link between them, so that we are also trying to educate people. Today if you see, go to town and country planning department, you will realize that out of 100% of the works which are happening in Goa or maybe even in India, only 25% of the works are done by professionally trained architects in India, and remaining 75% is done by somebody else who is not an architect or non-architects. That is the big question for our institute. So we are trying to educate the masses and tell them, please go back to architecture or go back to professionally trained architects.
Why is it happening?
See, going to an architect, especially villages or rural areas, there is a conception that okay, if you go to an architect, he will charge you, it will be huge, expensive fortune. It's not like that actually. Just get into basic planning procedures with an architect, you will realize the quality of work that we do. And generally, the non-professionals which are there, mostly the contractors, they generally prefer to do, all by themselves. There's nobody to keep a watch on their materials. There's nobody to keep a watch on how much they charge a client. If you see, Government of India, Prime Minister Modi ji has recently streamlined entire procedures under National Building Code, which is come in 4 volumes, which will tell you what kind of house should come all over the place. If you are a buyer, National Building Code tells you what you should deserve. Whether it is issues related to parking infrastructure, whether it is related to fire escape or emergency services, whether it is related to a habitat or a quality of habitat, National Building Code will decide and dictate what kind of architecture you should do or deliver to that particular client. So we are trying our best through our institute to and impress upon the government to see that you please follow National Building Code guidelines. It cannot be that a builder or a contractor dictates what a kitchen should be. There has to be standard guidelines. When you're paying maybe 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs as a flat owner, they should have an idea, and they should get a common yardstick that yes, in South Goa kitchen is like this, North Goa kitchen is like this. You cannot be taking them for granted.
But is Goa government listening to you?
In fact, it's a good question that you asked me. Definition of what they are listening is a question right now. And we have seen series of policy makers who have existed since 1961 when the Portuguese went, right from inception of our first Chief Minister Babasaheb Bandodkar. He started off the entire wave from scratch. The entire infrastructure had to be created. That particular time, the planners and architects were brought from Delhi, from the ministry, and they helped because we didn't have infrastructure of architects involved in Goa. Gradually, during the Congress regime, during Pratap Singh Rane's time, during almost 15-20 years, this component of architecture also started, where professionals started getting recognition. And gradually now, in today's date, in last 10 years, you can see with major change of reforms happening at the central level, ever since Vajpayee has also took over, and now during Modi ji's time, getting this digital network kind of working methodologies. I'm sure we are also looked at by the government as advisors advisors to all these policies. But it's a struggle. They are listening to maybe part of it, but we are waiting for a day when they will look at it differently in all sectors of architecture or planning that is needed, both for urban areas also and rural areas also. Urban areas, what you asked me initially, what are the concerns and kind of planning processes. In urban areas, there are different methodologies to handle a town. Urban town has to grow. You can never say ground plus one structure will stay ground plus one throughout your lifetime. Whether it is Bangalore Garden City or Delhi, or whether it is Haryana, or whether it is any town in Hyderabad, a town has to grow. A family of 4 which was in Panjim maybe 50 years back has become family of 300 people today. Family has multiplied, generations, grandparents, almost 4 generations have come. But question is whether we are looked at as a force which will guide the government, is a question right now. And with current scenarios, with new ministries also coming in, and pressure from the government of India to stabilize and streamline all the procedures, whether it is in planning process form, whether it is in regional plan form, whether it is in smart city mission form, or whether it is in the kind of mission that they have started, housing for everybody by 2020, or the new concept which has come in the form of GST also, and in the form of RERA also. There is some kind of challenging task for we as professionals to come in and help the government, and I expect that kind of helping hand and willingness from the government also to listen to us.
Have they ever come to you?
Yes, in fact, in last 1 year I have seen that change. Ever since the wave of digital India has started coming in, gradually departments like town and country planning department, especially in today's date, even planning and development authorities are slowly trying to understand the kind of transformation which is happening in the cities today. Widening of roads in any town is not planning. Just widening from 3-meter road to 15-meter road is not planning. You need to understand that where what is needed, where road is needed. My advice to the entire government or entire policy maker is don't create a building and then make a road for it, and then get a water line or a transformer or electricity or a sewage line. Create infrastructure first and then think of making a building. And that is what is happening in all the bigger commercial establishment today. Whether it is in Panjim, the kind of issue what happens during festivals also, whether it is an exhibition or whether it is some kind of rally in town, or whether it is something like commercial establishment, or whether it is a pressure from parking from this casino infrastructure.
Correct.
It is very important for government also to understand holistically as to what or whether that carrying capacity is there in your urban towns or not. That mobility is very, very important. Don't create buildings and then think of a road. It should be the other way around.
Okay, we have to take a short break here, and we will come back in the next part of this next segment of this program, and we will let you know what is a way forward towards this architecture in Goa.